Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions 7 days a week. Let's go ahead and jump into those questions. Bill, what do we got?
Right off the bat, Mike Edwards has this question out of Brooklyn, New York. Morning, everyone. Has the panel tested the audio quality of the Rode CallMe update for production? He's got a link there.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
No, I haven't. And I'm really digging into the documentation to see what encoder and what the protocol is. I've not been able to see that, but it looks really like the COVID versions of just sending audio through a browser. So I will be digging more into this. Basically, the thing that Rode has done here is to enable podcasters and small, maybe even radio stations using the Rode products to be able to just update the firmware for free and then add a paid service for one or multiple lines, depending on what your need is, and actually just create a kind of remote calling system that we know from both Mimo, we know them from vMix and other as well. This is for audio only, and it handles the mix minuses perfectly according to rumors, and has a great audio for the remote caller. Of course, the remote caller also need to have a good microphone setup and audio flow to be able to support the high quality of the transmission itself. So it seems like a really cool way to do it, and I would really just dig into the protocols and see what they actually are using there, because that's how I am.
Go ahead, Courtney.
No, in fact, I just found out about it as I was reading this question about 3 minutes ago. So I do have a Rodecaster Pro, which you're hearing me on right now. It does require a firmware update, which I have not run yet. And as I understand from the first 2 minutes that I was able to see of the video that was linked to, it does have a light version, which is free, which it installs and then connects together multiple Rodecasters, or at least two, over Wi-Fi and or over the internet. So that you can then bring one in over one of the inputs, I guess, to the other Rodecaster with almost minimal latency and as little as you can get coming over the internet. And two-way mix minus, as was mentioned earlier. So I haven't tried it yet. I look forward to putting it down here, but I'll have to make contact with somebody else who has a Rodecaster Pro to see if it talks to them. And I'm not sure if Ronnie has looked more into the documentation, whether it's also accepts calls from just any people who don't have necessarily the Rodecaster who call in using an app on their that runs in the browser.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, and I think that is actually the point. In fact, I didn't see that it connects another Rodecaster. This is really to enable to easily join a guest over better quality audio. So I'll show on screen here, for example, this is what you get. You get a link that you can send to a guest who joins, much like many of the other kind of web or browser-based meeting conferencing solutions. So, and the reason I even wanted to jump in is just to say I'm surprised at how many people I still see who are podcasters but not very technical. They don't know how to bring a guest in, so they use the quote-unquote feature to plug their phone into their Rodecaster, and they do a telephone call to their guest, and they bring them in that way, and they got them, but it's, telephone quality compared to hopefully your better quality. So this is even just a huge step up from that. In fact, even if the guest is still using their phone, the audio coming over this way will be far superior than just bringing them in a phone call. So I think this is a fantastic idea. And now Courtney has some homework for us.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, to answer Courtney, it's free if you, as I understood the video, it's free if you have two Rodecasters on each end, but it costs something if you would like to have the caller call anyone to call in. The thing is, I was thinking about a radio station I was involved with many, many years back, and we had this call-in service, and we had a telco, so the phone company handle the queue, and I would think that they need to be adding a queue manager for this. If you add this QR code on a visual radio show and going out to YouTube, for instance, and you have hundreds or if not thousands of listeners, and 10 of them or 10% of them are starting to call in using this service, I'm wondering what happens with the ones that are coming in second and third and fourth. There need to be a queue system for this.
It does seem like it's a pretty basic. So number one is that a lot of us have been asking for something like this for about 20 years. Right when podcasting started, poor John Tatulis, who worked at Sound Devices, got to hear me talk about it about every 2 or 3 months starting in 2006. Like, here's what we need. I need hardware that connects, that lets me do this recording. The upside is they're starting with it. So the light version looks, according to the movie, the light version is free point to point if you have 2 of these going on. So if you have a regular podcast you're doing with somebody and you both have them, you can connect and record. If you pay, you get 2 guests, and if you pay more, you get 3 guests. And those 3 guests also, there's some other tools that they make available to you. So you can get up to 4 people talking back and forth, which for non-office hours is pretty good as far as that round table. There's 2 things that when I first watched the movie, and I've only seen it since Mike Edwards asked the question, so I haven't, or this morning, and I haven't really dug into it. Number one is what you really want on the far end is not a web page or a Rodecaster. I think Rode will know this. The next step for Rode is a dumb box that you plug your mic into, and you plug an Ethernet into, and it has a headphone jack. So it'll have a couple things on it, but I think that's where Rode will go with this, is that I can send a box to somebody with a mic, plug it in, and it just connects to it over the internet. They're now very, very close, and it gives them a couple little dials or whatever, and Rode's the type of company that would do this. So I think that's the next step for Rode, is to send out something that's $60 or $99 or whatever it is, a smaller, less expensive thing that has no real dials on it and lets me control, in a perfect world, lets me control that remotely. And as Mickey said, just send a Comrex or similar audio codecs to your, but that's an order of magnitude more expensive. So we're talking about if you're looking at cost effective, Mickey is right. This has been handled for a long time with Comrex. The difference here is that it's 1/10 the cost. So that's so I think that's the thing that'll change here. Go ahead, Courtney.
It does work with the Rodecaster Duo, which is the lower price, the $400 version of the Rodecaster Pro.
You just don't want to send anybody any buttons. Like when you bring guests in, you don't want to send them with any that's what everyone misses, is they're like, well, you can just use this. Not really. Like, I'm dealing with people who barely know how to use their computer, and so I need to be able to send them something that gives me data, lets me see what's going on, lets me control it.
Unmute them remotely.
All that, like just basically here's a mic, plug the mic in, plug the Ethernet in here, plug the power in here, call it a day. Like that's what's needed, and in this industry. And the other challenge that they're going to have is that podcasting now is becoming more and more a video thing. So when you look at the most successful podcasters at this point, they're almost all doing it with video. And so the challenge here is this is fixing one part of the problem, but what you really need is to fix both of those problems at the same time. And to fix those problems, we need obviously a solid connection for having that conversation. B, double ending. And I think that if you look at everybody going live, being able to do a live show and then double end, is something that no one's good at yet. No one can do that well yet. And so we'll see when that occurs.
I'm waiting for them to do a AI call screener so that you call in, you reach the AI, it runs you through the mic check, it asks you what you want to talk about, it puts you in the queue. It weeds out the baba booies and the trolls, and then puts you. That would be great.
Yeah, the problem. I mean, usually, I do the show with Michael Krasny, or we're about to relaunch the show with Michael Krasny, and I listened to Michael Krasny for a decade, or actually 2 decades on radio, and he would interview someone for the first 20 to 30 minutes, and then they'd open it up to questions, and that's when I stopped listening. I just can't listen to people blabber on about their stuff on the radio, and so the thing is it was like these crazy people calling in and wasting my time, and so the reason, this is the seeds of Mukana, was to get rid of mics and get rid of call-ins, and I think you should only let people that call in. So that's like a inner circle kind of thing. And then the outer circle texts and votes. Next question.
Jacob Goodnight in Indianapolis, Indiana has this one. What is an all-pass filter? Do you recommend enabling it for home theater calibration? And he notes he's using an Audyssey. That's the Audyssey Denon Calibration mic.
Go, Ronnie.
So it's been years since I've done something similar like this, but I never heard the term all pass before. But as I understand, the all pass is just not doing anything to the equalization, so the EQ settings will be the same. And I would guess the Audyssey normal calibration is sufficient for 99% of the people using this receiver. But I would think that the all-pass filter is for very advanced adjustments and manual control over phase. So the thing is that this filter is just adjusting phase of the different frequency ranges. So I would think of an example, what we do on the big stages, where we adjust the phase of the subwoofers to be exactly in line with the array or point sources or fill speakers that we have on stage. So I would think that this is for very, very, very advanced adjustments, and normally you should just leave it off, I would suggest. But if you feel like it, you should just dive into that and understand how it delays or phase shifts the different frequency ranges that you are working with.
Yeah, Mickey said that an all-pass filter is a home theater processor is added inline to channels with no filtering in order to time align them to other channels that do have filtering in place, such as channels with bass management enabled. So very much what Ronnie was talking about, of being able to control phase at a frequency. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, and the bigger thing is that what you really want to do is you want to have something that's going to get the whole room. From what I've seen with these Denisons, is they're very limited with where they're placed or anything like that. Like for instance, if I was to RTA a event space, I'd get an RTA mic, I'd put it in the middle of the room, and then I'd be testing the speakers. So the other big thing is the room itself.
I think that this one's specifically designed for your home. Like this is not.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
But my point is the RTA mic is for that, and this mic just seems to be a little bit cheap, especially because they're really inexpensive. But the other thing is, if you're not treating the room to begin with, then yeah, you can probably make it sound a little bit better, but it's going to still sound like polishing a pile of dirt.
Next question.
Christian Ortiz in South Florida up next. Has anyone used the Kiloview P3 wireless bonding video encoder for live streaming? And what was the latest used for a show like NAB for office hours, I suppose?
I believe we were using the Videons for the last NAB, and we have been using more and more of the Videon encoders, the Edge encoders and the Edge Max encoders. So so those are the ones that we've been kind of moving towards. It's what I'm doing my little concerts with. It's what we've been using at 090 for a lot of our smaller, as a smaller encode system. So what we used to bond out of NAB was a LiveView, and I would say the LiveView LU800 is kind of the gold star of of doing wireless. It's not just having modems. It's the antenna system that they built. It's the whole system, that how it sets up and how it makes it work, and the fact that for us, It's able to do 8 channels of audio, which means that we can do we can send mics plus ambisonic or a 5.1 mix back to back home to be actually streamed out that way. So that's what we're using to get out of it. I do like Kiloview mostly because it delivered to us one of our larger clients because it failed for somebody else. So anyway, and we were doing something else, and they were like, "Can you do the next one?" And we said yes, and we've been doing them ever since. So that's my only experience with Kiloview is that it handed us one of our larger clients because we haven't found them to be super stable. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, I totally agree. We currently have this encoder from Kiloview called E3, if it just could focus on it. So it's kind of a simple encoder. It does pretty well. We have some sync issues with it. The newest firmware, though, is fixing a few of those things that we saw with that. So they're definitely improving the quality of the products and seeing that they actually take care of their customers that have a few of those. It seems to me like the most of the problem is when we are at 2997, so in the US kind of frame rates, where we have some difficulties with the sync. In PAL land, which is 25 or 50 frames, full 25 or full 50, it seems to be less of a problem. But I also took a look at the P3 last year at IBC, and I've heard from some of the users that they are working, but in fact, it's kind of a budget product, I would say. If you have the budget, I would probably get a live view or even better units if you are really doing important stuff that shouldn't be breaking, at least for now.
Next question.
Funsak Georgian didn't say where. Hi, panelists. Has anyone tested the Hollyland Lark Max 2? Thanks.
This is an interesting product. It is a audio monitoring system. So I haven't used it, but I'm just looking at it from this question here. So it's really designed to provide the audio. So it's a wireless audio monitoring. So it's for folks who are going to so that they can hear what's going on. I don't quite understand where it's getting the audio to go in. They have it attached to the camera. But I don't quite, and again, just from scanning this, I'm not 100% sure where it's coming from there. So yeah, so that's the only question I have there. I guess it's a microphone as well. Yeah, I don't quite understand the chain. I guess there's a receiver. I don't like. This is the problem with these websites. Like. It doesn't fully tell us in the website quickly in the first thing, this is what this does. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I think it interfaces with their wireless mic system. So it's basically it has an OWS receiver, which is an additional item that interfaces with their regular Hollyland 2.4 gigahertz wireless mics. So I think it's a Bluetooth receiver, because it also doubles as a Bluetooth receiver, so that you can monitor.
So you use their little mics, and their mics are transmitting back to the camera or whatever, and it feeds it into the camera, but it also sends it to a couple other. It also
sends it over a low distance, low power Bluetooth to that earpiece, so that you can have an in-ear monitor without being tied to the camera to hear what's going on coming in over the wireless mics. It works up to about 100 feet. It says works 18 hours. On a charge, and since it doubles as a Bluetooth earphone, maybe it just has a private Bluetooth channel or uses 2.4 gigahertz frequency hopping for its wireless connection to either the receiver or, I guess, to the microphones themselves. But I think you have to use it in conjunction with the Hollyland receiver.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and basically this is just like a lot of these other 2.4 gigahertz microphones that we're getting. I got one that I can't talk about until next week, but that does almost the same thing. So this device, this part right here, is what really plugs into your phone. You'll probably either get a USB-C or a Lightning if you still have a Lightning phone to that. These are the two microphones, and then this one will plug into your camera, so you can do the Bluetooth for the headset from there. So it looks like a nice system. I'd use it for comms, if anything. Anything low end, because it is 2.4 gigahertz, and it always has a chance to kick out in and out, especially in those little micro kick outs. A lot of people don't hear it, but I hear it, and all of a sudden it's just it gives me chills. But it would be great for a comms system, but I wouldn't use it in a high-end production of video. Maybe something if I'm recording my friend's band or something like that.
Yeah, we've used some of the DJI ones as well as some of the Rode ones, these little 2.4s. And my experience with them generally is if you're very close, this is just like keeping the wires out of the mix. They kind of work. I guess where I've kind of gone with the 2.4 in general is if I'm getting paid for it, I'm not using it. So you can always tell if I'm experimenting, if I'm doing my own content that I can redo again and I don't have a lot of other people involved. If I'm doing those are all things that in a very controlled environment, I find them to be fine for that kind of thing. But I would not, as soon as someone writes me a check, I'm going to buy a real transmitter and a real receiver. I think using the way they show them here, using them at someone's wedding is a recipe for disaster. And this is the only time that they're going to do this. This isn't like a throwaway broadcast. This isn't a YouTube thing. You should never use 2.4 in a or those kinds of transmitters in a thing that absolutely can't fail. And as someone who's worked on 400 weddings in a previous life, you can't fail that part. That's not one of the places that you experiment. Next question.
Talalik Lopez Waterman in Brevard, North Carolina. Harshid, I recently saw an Instagram reel where someone who is blind uses ChatGPT to help him navigate an airport. He uses his camera and ChatGPT directs him. Have you tried this? And it seems pretty awesome.
Go ahead, Harshid.
Hey, Talalik. I have not tried this specifically, but in the realm of AI and ChatGPT, we also have Seeing AI that does provide a similar navigational pattern. There's also been other apps called Soundscape. So you would have directional auditory markers that you hear. And if you have some low vision, you'd be able to see. So I think ChatGPT has leveraged that within to use your camera. One thing that I do use often, though, is Gemini, and Gemini does have the Gemini Live. So that also does give me quite a bit of information that I need. I think this is just a waiting time because Google Lookout Assisted Vision, Gemini on the Android side, and then Seeing AI and all these other apps are just getting more and more intuitive. So just a few more moments.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
One thing I wanted to caution with this, I've been playing a lot with both Gemini and ChatGPT with image analysis, and especially the live, including the one with very cool in the Google AI Studio, where you can let it watch your screen and kind of be a helper to you. All of these image analysis so far, for efficiency, they always default to making generalizations. They try and work on the least amount of information they can to give you a reasonable guess as to what you're asking and the answer. And often, at least in my experience, only after I tell it that it is flat out wrong that it employs the more rigorous analysis and then comes up with the correct answer. Now, for a lot of my purposes, not a big deal yet. If you're having it help you navigate and not fall down a flight of stairs, that's a little bit more concerning. So I would say be cautious with safety with this, because it's not always necessarily going to be real time. So for example, I would envision if it has a map of something, it's going to map you through. It's not necessarily going to tell you there's a dog in front of you. I wouldn't necessarily trust it. And I for a long time, I volunteered on an app called Be My Eyes, where folks can just, you'll just get a notification, a call basically, and now you're seeing their camera, and it's for any number of things. Does this shirt match this pants? And the scariest thing was one time when someone called me to help them navigate an intersection. If I'm telling them if their thermostat is set right, fine, but navigating through traffic and things like that is scary. So I just exercise caution, know that it's not always necessarily going to be real-time accurate.
I think this is going to get really good at what it does really fast. So this is definitely something that it's good at. I think that it is we're probably just a little bit early on it, but I think, you probably see people on the outer edge there, but I think that we're going to, who knows what bad things AI is going to do, but in the short term, the ability to learn faster and the ability to get over all kinds of obstacles is becoming very apparent. This is something that really makes a lot of things, accessibility through this type of thing, but also language. A lot of those things are like the idea of not being able to talk to someone in the street because they speak another language. For an average person is probably 2 years, and your phone will do. Everyone's phone will do it. It's just going to be like you just pull out your phone and start talking back and forth. Yeah, go ahead, Harshid.
One more thing is that we also are utilizing a lot of more sensors. So with your iPhone Pro models, you have a LiDAR sensor, and a lot of these a lot of bits of information is going back and forth with these apps. So we are getting to that cusp of we're training it to do better. But of course, I totally agree with Jeff. It's safety first. You're not really using it to perhaps cross the street, but you're using it to have another pair of eyes just to make sure you're doing okay. So again, safety first, but the sensors are where the money's at.
If you would like to ask questions, chat on the questions, vote on the questions, of course, you can join us here in Mukana. That is our Q&A system. And if you don't know how to get there, go to officehours.global/join. Let's go ahead and jump into the next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up again. What durable keyboard stands do you prefer to use in the studio? As I live in a rented space, easy setup and teardown would be important.
Go, Ronnie.
Yeah, so in my mind, it depends a little bit about, so most of them are easy to set up and take down. If this is just a normal X stand, or if it's more of a table, or if it's a show stand like a single pole, I would, in all those instances, I would just look to our main vendor for this, and that is K&M or Koenig & Meyer. They have a huge selection of X stands, which is, in my opinion, a little flimsy. We have a lot of those and easy to set up and take down. They are a little bit, wobbly, depending on the weight of the keyboard or synthesizer. They are also a little bit different if you would like to. They are difficult if you like to add a second layer with a MIDI controller or something. Then we tend to go with a more solid keyboard tables, which can add a lot of different mounts and be adjusted to any height you would think of, width and depth, etc. And it's much easier to add layers for extra keyboards to be able to stack them. And then you have the column stands that are really for show. Looks kind of sexy on the stage and has also support for multiple stacked keyboards. So Koenig & Meyer is always our go-to, and sometimes we have other needs, and those will be very special if Koenig & Meyer doesn't have a thing for that.
Good, Jeffrey.
Sexy keyboard stand. I love it. There's one other type of stand. It's called a platform stand, which kind of looks like a little table without a tabletop, and it's got some adjustability to it. I'm assuming, Douglas, this is for just audio only, because it also matters if you're bringing video into there and how many keyboards you're bringing in there, how you stack them and everything like that. On the keyboard stand, I use an onstage, but the biggest problem with onstage is eventually, like Ronnie said, they start to warp and then they'll wobble, and then you have to figure out how to fix the wobble. For my acoustic show, which I do bring a keyboard, I actually got pretty creative, and I went to Goodwill and I found it was like a $450 walker, and I put a bar around it, and I could put the keyboard on top. I can actually put my iPad and everything on top of that, and the best part about it is it's got locking wheels, so I unlock it, I can roll it back and forth, and I can lock it back up. One last thing is, if you want more of a production desk with a keyboard and then your computer's going to be right there, then you might want to think of a sit-stand desk, because now you can raise it, you can lower it, and you can actually put in an actual keyboard tray underneath that you can slide in and out. And then, of course, you could use it as a computer when you need to, and then roll it out and do your work that you need to. But that's only for if you have one keyboard. If you're using like 3 or 4, you have to get a little bit more creative.
Good, Courtney.
Yeah, I use as one of the setups like Ronnie was showing, which I just use a folding table that I put a big keyboard on my K2000. And then I have one of those that sits on top of the table that has the legs that goes under the K2000 to hold a second synth on top. For traveling, they're a lot more flimsy. The X-type stands, the standard keyboard stands, are fairly stable, but if you're sitting at your keyboard, your knees kind of get in the way if you want to put your legs underneath your keyboard. So there's a number of these DJ stands, and these can be used for keyboards as well. A 2-tier keyboard stand from Griffin. You can find them on Amazon. They fold flat. They have telescoping legs, so you can work either seated or standing. They have a second rack up here to hold a second, maybe lighter keyboard, or just like a MIDI keyboard that goes on there. There's not a lot of the only diagonals are here, right here, but there's no diagonals to these top ones, so the top one might be a little bit shaky if you don't have any diagonal supports to keep it from wobbling back and forth like this. Parallelogram, but you can buy them like that, and that's designed to fold flat and go into a car to do your DJ gigs with.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. What is the difference between a low-pass and a high-pass filter?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I had hoped to reverse this image. I tried to find the simplest example to just kind of walk this very simply. And the reason I wanted to flip these, I was going to do a quick edit, is this is what took me at least the longest to just wrap my head around, which is very simple. Really, when you use them, they're on the opposite side. So the high pass would typically be on the left and the low pass on the right. But put simply, so if anything, whatever frequency you set this, and that's this black bar here, whatever frequency you set that, it's like the velvet ropes at a club. Only frequencies that are higher than this threshold get to come into the club, and anything below it doesn't, and then vice versa. So what you're typically doing is cutting off those low frequency rumbles, and low pass is the same, and then that's on the other side, the high end of the spectrum. So only frequencies below this threshold are going to come through.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'll use like a bass drum microphone. I will set the high pass filter so it doesn't get those high end, and of course the low pass filter.
Maybe the other way around?
The other way around. Yeah. I just realized that. And then, of course, the low-pass filter is perfect for YouTube videos. If you're using music on top of a talking head, you put the low-pass filter on, and then you can adjust it so you don't, and with a little bit of volume, that actually lowers everything so people can hear the voices over the music.
Yeah, and the high-pass filter, a lot of times we use to get rid of the rumble. Plosives and other things while in a live environment. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, and if you combine the two, you have a band reject filter, which is it will attenuate all the frequencies at a certain band between the two high pass and the low pass filters. So that's used for notch, or it's sometimes called a notch filter. It'll notch out a specific frequency while letting the others pass, the low frequency and the high frequency pass. There's also a one that will emphasize a specific band, which will pass only a certain it's a single band pass instead of a single band reject. So they can use it to find the frequency that you're looking for, that you want to set your band reject filter to.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, what would Office Hours Audio Wednesday be without the demonstration? So here is my computer software that controls the CQ12, which I'm talking into. This is the channel for the SM7B, and this is a high-pass filter. And as you can hear, when I'm adjusting this, the audio will change. And when I'm passing 200 and up, you will definitely hear something going on with my voice. And this is kind of how it's working in practical use.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Brody Hafner in New York City. I need to record a high-quality digital file from a vinyl record. Single speaker, it's spoken word audio. I'm thinking of a phono aux-out via RCA-to-XLR conversion cable into a mixpre 3. Any other suggestions or tips?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Well, I would say that most of the time, if this is a really easy production, you can go with that and just use the camera as the signal input. In all other situations where quality is important and stability, etc., and to make sure that you have all the maximum quality of the audio, I would choose to route the audio through a professional interface like the SSL, and it depends on a lot of different things. Some of the soundboards also have their own interface to computers, and you can use, for instance, what I'm using here is the Allen CQ12, and I have a USB interface, and I use that as an interface instead. But if you have the option to choose between those two, use your SSL as the primary interface, and then have a signal going to the camera as well as a secondary redundancy option in case something goes on with the primary interface. That's how I would do it.
I had to pull something from a record a while ago, and what we ended up using was this. This is a Audio-Technica direct drive with a USB output. So this just shows up as a USB device. So you're not doing all the analog in and out and everything else. It just plugs in as a USB device and delivers the audio through it. This is probably a more expensive solution. There's a couple different versions at different prices, but they do make record players with USB. I would not use the unbalanced RCA cables unless I had absolutely no other option. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, you got to be careful if you have a turntable, an older turntable with like a magnetic pickup. The output of those are super high impedance, and they're not line level coming out. You need something like this. This is AR-Accessories. I think that's the name of this company here. But it's designed to hook up turntables to USB, and you can see the USB Type B connector on there. So it has a preamp in here that's designed to take those RCA magnetic inputs out of a good quality turntable and turn it into audio, which you can pull out either over USB or over optical or over SPDIF digitally. So this is an A to D converter as well as a audio preamplifier that is designed to amplify that super low signal that comes out of a magnetic phono cartridge. And it also has the RIAA. It has a bunch of switchable inputs so you can control the gain and all that good stuff. And it has the RIAA frequency cutoff for it, which is important as you're pulling that out of a vinyl recording.
I go, Jeff.
I'll say a couple of things based on the information you gave us, which is, I'm only bringing this up because you said high quality, and you seem to be implying one specific need as opposed to an ongoing need. So you're in New York City. So I would say if it's a one-time use, it doesn't make sense to buy anything. There's a studio somewhere in New York City that has all the high-end gear and still has a high-end turntable with a very good quality needle and everything else that can make this recording for you. That's probably still going to be way more cost-effective than if you need to buy more gear.
I go, Bill.
And I'd also just make sure you clean the record properly. Discwasher used to make these kind of felt pad on a wooden block things that were set so that the fibers went in one direction. You use something damp on that, and then make sure that the record is cleaned out for that one hero play back if you're going to do it yourself.
And de-staticked.
De-static, yes.
Yeah, like all that stuff. Oh my gosh. It just brings back not great memories for me. Yeah. I have to admit that I had a lot of records, and within a week of CDs being released in the United States, I stopped buying records. It was I don't want to deal with this anymore. Go ahead, Jeff.
And I'll add one other thing in case it's not known, especially if you are using mixpre. I would urge against using any kind of filtering or processing during the recording. The capability of post-production software to declick, decrackle, do all those things is just phenomenal now. So just record it as pure as possible.
Next question.
Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota. Would it be a good idea to switch my routing, the routing of my audio mix for broadcast, to go through an SSL USB interface instead of going through the Sony/HDMI that I'm doing now?
Good, Ronnie.
Yeah, I'm just responding to my previous answer. If you're going to have audio going through a camera, you have all the good things happening with synchronization, etc., that takes place inside the camera. But the sound quality is sometimes impaired to some degree, depending, of course, the quality of your camera. So in this situation, I would probably go for the audio routing through the SSL interface, which is really good sounding, and have the delay or latency set manually a little bit later in the chain. So the idea is to inject the audio at the latest possible point in the chain to have the optimum quality of the audio, and just use your camera as a secondary kind of backup if in case the primary audio interface is failing. And as I said before, using a modern soundboard or a mixer is always providing some form of USB interfaces that can also be used as an interface. But as you said, you're using an SSL interface, and that is really sounding good. So I would choose that route instead of using the camera route.
Yeah, and it depends on what the mix is itself. So one thing that I would not do is put a mic into a camera unless I had to. So, I mean, if you're okay if it's news gathering or something like that, whatever. But if you care about it, you don't want to use the preamps on those little on the mic interfaces on most cameras, and especially the little ones you buy that you put onto it. They're very a lot of self noise. They're very sensitive to any kind of overmodulation. It's really not a great way to do it with mics. Now, if you're sending your mix in and you're sending a line into the camera, you might be better off. The advantage of doing it through the camera is that you're not going to have to worry about sync. So the camera, if you're going into a switcher and you have the SSL, you're going to need to figure out there's going to be a couple frames different. You may see as many as 3 to 5 frames of loss going through, like for instance, a Blackmagic switcher, so that you have to adjust for. So going straight into the camera is going to be, you don't have to worry about that, and it's going to stay in sync. So, but obviously, I don't think if you have a whole mix, I think the audio difference between the SSL and the camera will be minimal, maybe not zero. The interfaces to the cameras tend to have a lot of self noise, but be a lot less. Next question.
Next question comes to us from Raj Chandel in Los Angeles. Could you discuss a simple chain to record a clean voiceover for audio if sitting at a computer with a mic? This is for video editing in Resolve. The audio is going through a mixpre.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, it's funny you mention that because this is one of the new features. I mean, you could always do it, but in version 20, they've made it that much more simple. So in the editing panel, for example, now you can just bring up this little voiceover tool for precisely the scenario you're describing. You're sitting there editing and you want to voice over what you're describing. So you can just bring up this little voiceover record module. You'll have a new audio track or an additional audio track, and you set your mic. I think you said you already have an interface. Your mixpre. So you're all set. You can either use Noise Assist on the mixpre or, of course, use all the fantastic tools in there, but it couldn't be more simple now in Resolve.
Go ahead, Bill.
The only other thing I'd suggest is the type of mic you use might have some effect on things. If you have a very sensitive condenser in a somewhat noisy room, you have computer fans and things like that, then your processing on the back end through Resolve or whatever you use is going to have a harder job taking down that noise without eating into your voice as well. So try to get as quiet a place as you can. Make sure that you shut down all the external noise if you have control over that kind of thing, so that the signal going into your mic is not infected by miscellaneous stuff that you want to try to filter out later.
Yeah, go Jeff.
And all of that 100% true. Try and obviously get the best recording you can, but potentially where your computer is, if you're sitting there editing, maybe it's a big space that is not otherwise acoustically treated. If you can't, the voice isolation module built in is just phenomenal for simple, just fan noise and other things like that. It'll do a beautiful job of getting rid of that very cleanly.
The one thing I would say is just don't use the noise cancellation features inside of the mixpre. The mixpre has its own, and for live stuff, we might use that. but we wouldn't use it if we're recording. There's better tools, in software to affect your voiceover if you're trying to get rid of any kind of fan noise or other things. There's a temptation to use the one that's built into the mixpre, but there's plenty of other tools that do that well. I would try to also just minimize anything that you're putting into the chain. You really want to rely on a great mic with good off-axis or a great voiceover mic in general, and a great interface, and try to not have anything else in between. Next question.
Alex Lindsay in Nevada, California. There's a new Zoom update. Alex, tell us about it.
So there's it's for the iPhone. It might be for Android as well. The iPhone had a funny problem, is that the way it spun here wasn't the way we would expect it to spin. And so it was a problem because one of the things we want to do is be able to use, you're going to see me there. We were having trouble having this little screen stay synced vertically with the screen on the phone. And this is a really, like, I don't even know if it's in the show. I think this is fitting under in the release notes as miscellaneous bug fixes. I don't even think that it's so. If you're looking for this list, I don't think it's. I think it's just but what it does is it fixes the way Zoom orients it here, which means it's easier for you to match it here. And why that's important to us is I've been trying to build a rig that lets me do this, have this camera. And now you can see I'm in Zoom right now. What this allows me to do is if I want to go, let's say, to a farmer's market or something like that, and we could have Damayanti from South Africa and Alice Dream and say Alice Waters from Berkeley and another, and somebody else from London, and we can go to a farmer's market and have them talk to the folks at the farmer's market, or we could have Courtney asking questions at NAB for a teleprompter, which we've done. But that rig was a lot bigger and a lot heavier than this. Now what we've gotten this down to is because that orientation is fixed, you can have somebody on this little screen and you can be pointing it at somebody and they're literally talking to that person. But this is delivering a 1080p stream back to Zoom, which means with Zoom ISO, we can pull it out and put it into a show. So we could do this little fix that again is in a rounding error in the release notes means that now we really have a clean way to grab whether it's NAB or an Expo or whatever, the ability to take remote panelists and have them directly interact with folks that are on the ground. And this is that step that we're trying to do of getting the moderator out of the way on the ground and really having it be just the camera operator. And the reason for that is, number one, is it's more direct. When they're talking to the panelists, they are talking directly to the audience. And so it's a much more, when they're showing something to the panelists, they're showing to the audience. And so that the audience isn't on the outside, looking in. And in addition to that, dealing with all of the, like you have to get a good host at every one of these locations. When you get it down to just the camera, it means that your experts can be anywhere in the world. It's much easier to schedule them than trying to get them to fly in. So this really, it's again a rounding error inside of Zoom, but this update came up yesterday. Obviously, I was alerted to it by some folks, and so it's been something that we've been hoping to see happen soon, and it's here. So I want to make sure everyone knows it's here. This little screen, I think there's a Rayon asked. This one that I'm using right now is the Nemowa, NEWMOWA, and I bought 3 of them. This is the small rig version. It's nice because they're all the same. I'm pretty sure the same screen, but probably made the same Chinese factory. But this one is small rigs version. It has a quarter 20, which means that you could play around with where you put it. And this one was the first one that started it. Somebody asked about this. This is I don't even know if it has a label on it. This was I can't remember what the screen name was, and they didn't even label it. This was the one that began it all. Someone asked about this, and we bought it directly from them, and they shipped it directly from China. It took 3 weeks. By the time this one showed up, I had the other 2 already, and this is the worst one of the bunch. So that was a waste of money. This one. The Nemowa is the nicest, lightest one. Again, I haven't decided whether I like the Nemowa better or the small rig one better. The small rig has the quarter 20. anyway, but I think this potentially and I'm testing an iPad version of this, which is a slightly larger screen. Are two options that it's funny. I thought that I'd want bigger screens, but the small screen next to the camera keeps the eye lines better. so we're still playing with that. Yeah, go ahead, Ronnie.
There were some rumors about the newest version also did something to the microphone or the audio processing or the selections. And just to add to that, I know one of the coolest update that came with this is the ability to change the toolbar. So have you had time to test the inputs?
All I cared about was that. So I have to admit that I tested that last night. I was excited that it was working, and then I went to bed. so I haven't tested anything else. There could be a lot of other great features, but I will say, from my perspective, and you'll see us start to do tests as soon as we can. I have a concert that I'm working on this weekend, so I don't know how much I'll get done this weekend. Otherwise, I'd be in a farmer's market trying to stream to you on Sunday. I might try to do it from a farmer's market on Saturday. The reason we're using farmer's markets is, number one is, I know farmers markets really well because that's my grocery store. I don't buy anything else. I buy almost no food anymore from anything else. So I know them really well. And number two is that that they are a great testing ground for us figuring out camera systems for expos. So I have an expo here in Marin. I have a quote unquote expo every day. Somewhere within 15 minutes of my house, there is an expo occurring. So if we want to figure out how the camera systems work, and we've got the approval to go to San Rafael's which is really the size of an expo. It's 2,000 people every Sunday come to buy food. So I have to finish a COI for them. It's pretty big. I mean, it's official, but we'll be doing that probably not this weekend, but next weekend.
Can't believe those little screens are $45 or $47.
Yeah, they. I think the ones I bought might be a little bit more than that, but not much. They're pretty cheap. They're not. You're not going to do color correction on them,
right?
But they are. But they're pretty cool little devices. And so I think for this, the reason that those screens are built is so that you can use your or your rear facing cameras that are high quality to shoot selfies. So the reason they make these screens is not what we're using them for. If you're wondering, why did they make that screen? It's so that you can use the super wide on your iPhone or the 48 megapixel on your iPhone on that rear facing camera, and not the cheap junky ones on your front facing camera. Next question.
Next one comes from Raj Shandil in Los Angeles. Thoughts on the DJI Mic 2 for recording to phone or DSLR to YouTube? And he's got a link there to the DJI Mic 2.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, it could be a good choice, but you might want to hold off and order the DJI Mic 3, which has just been announced, I think. It's supposed to come out yesterday, I don't know. And I think it's a updated version of, this is the DJI Mic Mini, which is about half the size of DJI Mic 2. They both interface to a cell phone or to their receiver, to a DSLR. Like this one does. It's about the size of a lozenge, a large lozenge there, so don't swallow it. But it interfaces to their DJI action cameras and to the Osmo Pocket and to the new Osmo 360, which is a 360 camera, which supposedly is coming out yesterday. But
I think
Jeffrey has
tomorrow. I think tomorrow is the release.
Oh, they changed it. It was the 29th, and today's the 30th. So
I think
maybe they moved it a day.
I don't know. I say, well, the 360 that I see on their website here says July 31st. So it's tomorrow at 8 a.m.
It was weird on Courtney's stream. It said now with stable transmission. Does that mean it had a problem with the 2?
They did improve.
Now it works.
No, they did improve the transmitter a great deal, and so I saw a demonstration of it where people are turning their back and walking away, and it does not drop out with 2.4 gigahertz transmission, which was a problem with the previous.
Maybe wait for the 3.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, so I used it for some time. I have the number 2 here. Shown here is it connected via the adapter. It comes with 2 adapters, USB-C and the older Lightning one, and it can connect directly to your phone and have both stereo channels. I haven't had any troubles with it connecting, even in difficult areas. It's working flawlessly. They had a firmware update that fixes the equalization on the microphone, and the transmitter is for the 2. I would also wait for the 3 ones. The transmitter is really, really small and kind of cool. And they also have an option to have a lavalier connected to that, and it also comes with kind of a small like this to prevent pops in the wind. Yeah, and it also inside the unit itself, it has a USB-C connector. You can also do recording inside it, and it also has some form of noise cancelling functionality that you can enable or disable. In addition to that, it can be directly connected to the camera without using the receiver that you saw here. It can connect directly using Bluetooth, and then you have to change the mode on the microphone. And as I've seen, that is the same on the Model 3, which is smaller, better, harder, and cooler.
What's interesting is a DJI site, you cannot find the mics if you just go to DJI. You have to have a direct link to the mics, which is very odd. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So I think the difference, there's going to be a difference between the Mic 3 and the Mic 2. And the big difference that Ronnie showed is the Mic 3 is going to be a little chiclet-style microphone that sets on you. I don't think it's going to have any type of lavalier option or anything like that. So that means you're going to have a big ugly sitting right on top of your shirt if you have anything like that. Whereas if you have the 2, you can put a lavalier, run it through the shirt, and look a little bit more professional on that. The style of the 2s are, I have a Ceramonic right here that has the exact same functionality. It's got a plug for the USB-C, a plug for the Lightning port, and then of course plugs into the phone. Then there's a 3.5 millimeter that plugs into the camera. If you're using any type of stabilizer, it's small, but you still have to worry about a little bit of calibration when you're plugging it in and taking it out, and if it's going to hit the sides when you are using the stabilizer. And then, of course, DJI, they do have proprietary hardware in there, a thing called OcuSync, which is supposed to talk with the units without having other interference. So if somebody else has a 2.4 gigahertz system close by, it's got some sort of digital handshake that's happening, so it sticks with your unit rather than jumping to the other unit. But once again, this is 2.4 gigahertz technology we're talking about. I really wish they would start thinking about bumping up to 5 to 5.8 gigahertz. That will make a world of difference.
Maybe. As you go up that higher frequency, it actually would be less performant, I think, because it will. It's a higher frequency, which means it won't go through water bags. Humans,
but the other thing is it will most likely bounce down to 2.4 if needed, so you'll have a dual channel.
Yeah, maybe. Next question
from someone named Alex Lindsay in Nevada, California. I'm testing a new mic.
So so here's the mic that I'm testing right now. Ambisonic's going to become more and more important as you watch. If you read the WWDC. I highly recommend watching the WWDC movies about the Apple spatial audio format and the Apple positional audio codec. What's going to happen? You're going to pay more and more attention to Ambisonic as a result. So one of the things I'm testing right now to go eventually with a 180 degree camera, if we end up getting to play with one, is really recording. And so Voyage was kind enough to send me one of these to test. So I've been testing the USB version of this. This is the Dante version. So if I cover my eyes, you'll kind of see it here. Let's see if I can get it there. There we go. So this is 8 mics. Now, typically, this is a second order ambisonic mic. The Omni, which would be the 9th mic, is virtualized. But this is the 8 mic system. Now, one of the things that is kind of cool about this, number one, is it's PoE. So you just plug the Ethernet in. There's some pluses and minuses to that. Figuring out power for PoE in the field, I'll show you in a second where I'm going with it. But that's been a little bit of a thought process because how do we have a compact PoE solution, for that? But there's a cool little control once it's on the Ethernet. And there's a little cool little control thing. It doesn't scale. This doesn't scale up, so I can't make it bigger for you. But what you can see here is if I talk into it, you'll see all those mics pulling there. What's kind of cool, though, is that I can also mix it down to a first order. So it's just the 4 channels. I can also go to surround. So this allows me to say, oh, I want 5171, 512, 404. So I can set these surround settings that are there that are being virtualized. There's a DSP inside of the mic that allows me to virtualize the how it's actually working here. Or I can go back to unprocessed. If I want to do stereo, I can set the pattern up there. And so I can do this. Now, once that's set in that controller, it's in the mic. So you don't need to connect it back. So it's telling the mic, this is what you're going to do. And so it delivers those channels. And that's something that's super useful for us because we want to incorporate this into our live workflow. And so basically I can, instead of saying, I don't want to necessarily process ambisonic, I just want to hand off a 5.1. And so if I can do that here in the mic, hand the 5.1 via Dante to my Scorpio in the field, and then add mics to that, and then mix them all together, and so on and so forth. So this from a live production pipeline is promising. I found it to be relatively quiet. I find it to be quieter than the Octa, which is the Octa, which is the one that I've had that's second order. There's a lot of talk about Apple's talking, in some of the videos that are on WWDC about 5th order ambisonic, 6th order or 7th order ambisonic. They're like, Apple's talking about really high levels inside of the new. So second may feel very pedestrian soon, but it's unusual to have a mic that you can have there. Now, the challenge is the power. And so one of the things that I've been working on is these little PoE units. Now this is a little PoE unit that allows you to have, regular Ethernet in and then a PoE out. And then I have it, what I figured, you can't just do a barrel to barrel from something like a small rig battery. So you need the DTAP. So the DTAP is going to deliver more voltage. And so you get a DTAP to barrel and plug it in. And this is going to give you, this is out of trial and error, I found out that the barrel to barrel doesn't work. So anyway, so the DTAP, this is a $10 cable or something like that. So this is one way to do that. But the problem is that I may want to be able to network and be able to control it. And I need to have a switch that does that. So the second version out, this is a little portable switch. So this is and it actually has SFPs available to it. And so, yeah, and Mickey says it can take, this one, yeah. So this is, and I don't know which one I have here, but this one here is, this little switch does 3. And I only need PoE on one of them, and then I can hook my computer and my Scorpio in if I need to in the field. Now this is using a block, but this block all I did is I took the one you just saw, I cut the end off and stripped it. So that's how how it works, and then that block goes in, and then it's just a DTAP, and then this goes into the bag. So anyway, so the and this is this has Vibrant. I don't know what I've got compared to what Mickey's pointing out, but I'll take a look at that too. But this has worked pretty well. So we'll talk about it more, and we'll show you some examples of it working soon. But I've been slowly piecing together all the pieces. What I would say is that if you want to go out and record, the USB version of this is a lot less expensive. And it just plugs into your iPhone and you can hit record. Like you just hit USB-C into your iPhone and hit record, and you get all the channels. And it's super cool that you can just wander. I take it out for walks, and I'm wandering around, and I just literally just go, oh, I'd like to record all this stuff. And so I just set up, I have a little light stand that I can carry easily. And so I just open it up, and in 5 minutes, I'm recording second order ambisonic. And then I close it back up and go back to my walking. So that the USB-C one has its own value to it. The Dante one is going to be easier for us to use inside of the live pipeline that we have. So anyway, I thought that might be something that people would enjoy. It went a little longer than I expected. Anyway, but this is the new mic, and we'll experiment with it more and give you more updates as we go. Thanks so much to everyone, all the producers asking all the great questions. It was great to have those, and we didn't get to all of them. Oftentimes we don't, but remember that you can put your questions back in. They're sent back to you. If they're in the QR code, they'll come back automatically. If they're not in the QR code, they will go back into your notes. You can always bring them back. Please do. Thanks to the panelists. Can't do this without you. So great to have a great panel here today, a great conversation, and so we really appreciate everybody's contribution here. And thank you to the incredible team on the back end that makes this possible, technically, management-wise, all of those things. There's a lot of people trying to figure out what are we doing next, and how does the website look, and how do we take care of the panelists, and how do we take care of the volunteers, and how do we figure out how to do some of the other things that Office Hours does, as well as an incredible production team and technical team that makes the show happen every single day, 7 days a week since March 25th, 2020. That's all like Traversal. If we had done this in person, we would have traveled 28,000 miles. That's 44,000 kilometers, and that is 219 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. Yeah, Brody said that it's 3K. Yeah, it is 3K. So it's not a cheap mic. I didn't say I was testing a cheap mic. This is though I think the best ambisonic one I've tested so far.
Yeah, I just got to get 9 sets of ears to listen to it with.
Yes. 9.
Can you choose that microphone as a source in Zoom? On the phone?
You should be able to. Yeah. I haven't tried it yet. It should just show up as you'd have to deliver it to you would have to deliver it to a device over Dante. This one, the USB one, shows up as a standard USB device with a lot of channels. So it has to be something that can see the channels. But yeah, I was kind of surprised at how easily it worked. Next,